Today we're going to explore one of the most powerful levers in human performance, building bigger and stronger legs. This isn't just about aesthetics. Your legs house the largest muscles in your body. They drive metabolism, protect your joints, and directly influence hormones like testosterone and growth hormone. By understanding the science of strength training, neuromuscular adaptation, and recovery, you'll learn how to unlock the full potential of your lower body. Progressive overload is the foundation of leg growth. At its core, progressive overload means gradually increasing the amount of stress you place on your muscles over time so that they continue to adapt and grow. Without this principle, even the most intense workouts eventually stop producing results. The body is an incredibly adaptive system. It resists change until you give it a reason to change. When you place a new demand on your muscles, whether by lifting heavier weights, adding more repetitions, slowing down the tempo of each rep, or reducing rest between sets, you create a signal that forces the muscle fibers, the nervous system, and even connective tissue to adapt to meet that new challenge. This process is what leads to bigger, stronger legs over weeks, months, and years. The quadriceps, hamstrings, glutes, and calves are large, powerful muscle groups that require significant stimulus to grow. Performing the same exercises with the same load repeatedly will eventually stop triggering growth because the muscles become efficient at handling that level of stress. For example, if you squat the same weight for the same number of reps every leg day, your body adapts to that demand and no longer has a reason to change. Progressive overload solves this plateau by ensuring that the stress you place on your legs is always slightly beyond what they are currently used to. This does not mean making massive jumps in weight or exhausting yourself to failure in every session. Instead, it's about making small, systematic increases in resistance or intensity over time. A 2% increase in load, an additional set, or even a slight improvement in range of motion can be enough to send the signal for continued growth. Neurologically, progressive overload also strengthens the communication between your brain and your muscles. At the start of a training journey, much of the strength gained is not from bigger muscles, but from better neural efficiency. Your nervous system becomes more effective at recruiting motor units, bundles of muscle fibers that contract together. This is why progressive overload must also be applied to form and technique. A deeper squat or a more controlled eccentric phase is a form of overload that improves neural drive and builds strength before hypertrophy even occurs. As the load continues to increase over time, those improved neural pathways allow you to handle greater stress, which then creates the conditions for hypertrophy. Physiologically, progressive overload activates cellular pathways that drive muscle growth. Mechanical tension, metabolic stress, and microtrauma to the muscle fibers signal your body to repair and reinforce those fibers, making them thicker and more capable of handling stress. Over time, this repeated cycle of stress and adaptation is what creates visibly larger and stronger legs. Importantly, the degree of overload must be carefully managed. Too little, and there is no stimulus. Too much, and the stress overwhelms the recovery process, leading to fatigue, injury, or stagnation. This balance between stress and recovery is the art of training, and progressive overload is the science that underpins it. Another critical aspect is variety within the framework of progressive overload. While adding weight to the bar is the most obvious form, overload can also come from different angles and movement patterns. Incorporating front squats, Romanian deadlifts, hip thrusts, or split squats challenges the legs in unique ways while still applying progressive overload. Each of these exercises places emphasis on different parts of the lower body, ensuring that growth is not only substantial but also balanced. The legs function as an integrated system, and progressive overload must be applied in a way that respects that integration. Ultimately, progressive overload is not a quick trick but a long-term commitment. It requires patience, consistency, and attention to detail. Small incremental improvements may not feel dramatic in the short term, but over time they accumulate into significant changes in size and strength. By respecting the principle of progressive overload, you harness the body's natural adaptability and direct it toward building legs that are not only larger and stronger, but also more functional, resilient, and capable of supporting peak performance in every aspect of life. Compound movements recruit maximum muscle fibers, and this is why they are considered the backbone of effective leg training. Exercises like squats, deadlifts, lunges, and leg presses are not just movements that target a single muscle. They activate multiple muscle groups simultaneously, forcing the quadriceps, hamstrings, glutes, and calves to work in unison. When you perform a squat, for example, you are not only pushing your quads to extend the knee, but also engaging your glutes and hamstrings to stabilize the hips, your core to brace the spine, and even your calves to maintain balance. This synergy creates a much higher demand on the body compared to isolation exercises, and it is precisely this demand that recruits a larger number of motor units and muscle fibers. The more fibers recruited, the greater the potential for growth and strength development over time. One of the reasons compound movements are so effective is because they mirror natural patterns of human movement. In everyday life and athletic performance, the legs rarely work in isolation. Whether you are sprinting, jumping, or simply climbing a staircase, your muscles operate together as a system. Training with compound movements ensures that you build strength and coordination in ways that directly translate to real-world function. This is why athletes across virtually every sport rely heavily on exercises like squats and deadlifts. They are not only building muscle, but also developing explosive power, stability, and resilience that carry over into performance. From a neurological perspective, compound lifts require a high degree of central nervous system activation. Performing a heavy squat or deadlift is as much a skill for the nervous system as it is for the muscles. The brain must coordinate the firing of multiple muscle groups in the correct sequence to execute the movement efficiently and safely. This high level of neural demand enhances motor learning and improves the body's ability to generate force. Over time, as you consistently practice these compound patterns, your nervous system becomes better at recruiting motor units more quickly and effectively, which translates into greater strength and control. This neural efficiency is a hidden advantage of compound training, setting the stage for progressive overload and long-term adaptation. Physiologically, compound movements also create a strong hormonal response. Because these lifts engage large muscle groups under heavy loads, they stimulate the release of anabolic hormones like testosterone and growth hormone. These hormones play a central role in muscle hypertrophy and recovery, amplifying the effects of training and making compound lifts a powerful driver of systemic adaptation. When you perform heavy squats or deadlifts, the stress is not localized to the legs alone. The entire body experiences a hormonal shift that benefits overall muscle growth and resilience. This is one of the reasons compound lifts are often prioritized early in a workout when energy levels are highest and the nervous system is fresh. Another important benefit of compound movements is efficiency. Since they activate multiple muscle groups at once, you can accomplish more in less time compared to training each muscle separately with isolation work. A few sets of heavy squats will stimulate growth in the quads, glutes, and hamstrings simultaneously while also strengthening the core. This efficiency is not only practical for time management, but also ensures that the body develops in a balanced way. Isolation exercises certainly have their place, particularly for targeting weak points or enhancing symmetry, but compound lifts create the foundation upon which isolation work becomes most effective. In addition, compound movements build structural integrity and resilience. By loading the spine, hips, and knees under controlled conditions, exercises like squats and deadlifts strengthen bones, tendons, and ligaments, making the entire system more resistant to injury. This structural reinforcement is crucial because as the muscles grow stronger, the supporting tissues must also adapt to handle the increased demands. Ignoring compound lifts in favor of lighter, isolated exercises often leads to imbalances where muscle size increases without the necessary stability to support it, raising the risk of injury during training or daily activities. Ultimately, the power of compound movements lies in their ability to integrate strength, size, and functionality into a single practice. They push the body to work as a unit, demand high neural activation, stimulate powerful hormonal responses, and create structural adaptations that ensure long-term progress. By consistently prioritizing compound lifts, you maximize muscle fiber recruitment, ensuring that every session drives your legs toward greater strength, size, and performance. Neural adaptations drive strength before size, and this is one of the most fascinating aspects of strength training, especially when it comes to building bigger and stronger legs. In the early stages of training, most of the improvements in strength do not come from muscle growth at all, but from changes within the nervous system. When someone begins performing squats, deadlifts, or lunges, the body does not immediately respond by adding more muscle fibers. Instead, the brain and spinal cord become more efficient at activating the muscles that already exist. This phenomenon explains why beginners often notice rapid increases in strength without seeing a significant change in leg size during the first few weeks. The nervous system learns to fire more motor units, synchronize them more effectively, and reduce inhibitory mechanisms that hold back maximum effort. A motor unit consists of a motor neuron and the muscle fibers it innervates. The nervous system's ability to recruit motor units is a critical determinant of strength. In untrained individuals, many motor units remain underutilized during heavy lifts, meaning the muscles are not firing at full capacity. Through consistent exposure to challenging movements like squats or Romanian deadlifts, the nervous system adapts by recruiting a greater percentage of available motor units, enabling the lifter to exert more force without any visible change in muscle size. Over time, these adaptations create the foundation upon which hypertrophy can occur because once the nervous system has optimized recruitment, the body is better prepared to handle progressively heavier loads that stimulate muscle growth. Neural adaptations also include improvements in the rate coding of motor units, which refers to how quickly the nervous system can send signals to contract muscle fibers. Faster signaling allows for stronger, more explosive contractions, an essential quality in lower body performance. For example, sprinting, jumping, and explosive squats all require the nervous system to activate muscle fibers at high speed, not just with high force. Training with heavy compound lifts and explosive movements improves this ability, making the legs not only stronger but also more powerful. This heightened neural drive can often be felt subjectively as movements start to feel smoother, faster, and more coordinated over time. Another critical aspect of neural adaptation is intermuscular coordination, which refers to how different muscles work together during a movement. When squatting, the quadriceps, glutes, hamstrings, calves, and core must fire in a precise sequence and at the right intensity to stabilize the body and move the load efficiently. Inexperienced lifters often struggle with balance or form because their nervous system has not yet mastered this coordination. With repeated practice, the brain becomes more skilled at orchestrating these patterns, reducing wasted effort and improving mechanical efficiency. This explains why technique often improves dramatically even in the absence of visible muscle growth. Stronger neural coordination means better form, safer lifts, and greater ability to apply force through the legs. Neural adaptations also play a role in overcoming inhibitory signals from the body. The nervous system has built-in mechanisms, such as the Golgi tendon organ, that act as safety brakes to prevent excessive force production and potential injury. Early in training, these inhibitory signals are strong, limiting how much force the muscles can generate. With consistent exposure to heavy resistance, the nervous system learns to reduce this inhibition, allowing for greater force output. This adaptation is one of the reasons experienced lifters can generate much more force than novices, even if their muscle size is similar. The body essentially learns to trust itself under heavy loads. Importantly, neural adaptations are not limited to beginners. Even advanced lifters continue to refine their nervous system efficiency by practicing heavy lifts, incorporating speed work, and using variations that challenge stability and coordination. These adaptations create an ongoing upward spiral where the nervous system enables greater force production, which then allows for progressive overload, which in turn drives muscle hypertrophy. Without this neural foundation, the potential for growth in leg size and strength is limited because the muscles cannot be adequately challenged. Ultimately, the nervous system acts as the master controller of strength. Before visible changes in leg size occur, it primes the body by learning to recruit more motor units, fire them faster, coordinate complex patterns of movement, and remove inhibitory brakes on performance. These adaptations ensure that when hypertrophy does occur, it is built upon a stable, powerful, and highly efficient neural foundation. Recovery and sleep amplify hypertrophy signals, and without them, even the most well-designed training program for building bigger and stronger legs will fail to deliver its full potential. When you train, especially with heavy compound lifts like squats, deadlifts, and lunges, you are not actually building muscle during the workout. Instead, you are creating controlled stress that causes microscopic damage to the muscle fibers and triggers a cascade of biochemical signals within the body. This stress primes the body for adaptation, but the actual repair and growth processes occur after the training session, during periods of rest, and especially during deep sleep. When you sleep, the body shifts into a highly anabolic state. Growth hormone, one of the most powerful drivers of muscle repair, is released in large pulses during slow wave sleep. This hormone accelerates protein synthesis, the process by which the body builds new muscle proteins to repair the microscopic damage caused by training. For the legs, which contain some of the largest muscles in the body, such as the quadriceps and glutes, the release of growth hormone during sleep is especially critical because the scale of repair required is substantial. Without adequate sleep, the body's capacity to synthesize protein is impaired, slowing recovery and limiting hypertrophy. Even a small reduction in sleep quality or duration can significantly blunt muscle building signals, leaving leg training less effective. Recovery also involves replenishing energy stores that were depleted during training. Glycogen, the storage form of carbohydrate in muscle, is heavily used during intense lower body workouts, especially those that include high-rep squats, lunges, or sprints. During rest and sleep, glycogen is restored, ensuring that the legs are fueled and ready for the next training session. If recovery windows are too short or if sleep is consistently inadequate, glycogen restoration is incomplete, leading to fatigue, reduced performance, and ultimately slower progress in building leg strength and size. This highlights the importance of balancing training stress with recovery periods that allow the body to recharge both structurally and energetically. Neurological recovery is another critical component amplified by sleep. Heavy leg training places significant demands on the central nervous system, as movements like squats and deadlifts require intense coordination and neural drive. During sleep, especially REM sleep, the brain processes motor patterns and consolidates neuromuscular learning, which improves coordination and technique. This is why after a good night's sleep, lifts often feel smoother and more controlled. Conversely, poor sleep disrupts this consolidation process, impairing motor learning and making it harder to refine technique or generate maximal force in the legs. Neural fatigue also takes longer to dissipate without quality rest, reducing the ability to progressively overload the muscles in subsequent sessions. Recovery is not only about sleep, but also about the management of overall stress. Intense training is itself a stressor, and the body's ability to adapt depends on how well it balances training stress with other forms of stress in life, such as work, emotional pressure, or poor nutrition. Chronic stress elevates cortisol, a hormone that breaks down muscle tissue and interferes with recovery. Sleep acts as a powerful regulator of cortisol, helping to keep it in check and allowing anabolic processes to dominate. In this way, prioritizing recovery and sleep is not simply about being less tired, but about creating the optimal hormonal environment for leg hypertrophy and strength development. Another dimension of recovery is tissue repair beyond the muscle fibers themselves. Heavy lower body training also stresses connective tissues such as tendons, ligaments, and cartilage. These structures adapt more slowly than muscle tissue and require ample recovery time to strengthen and remodel. Sleep enhances collagen synthesis and other repair processes within these tissues, ensuring that the joints and connective structures of the knees, hips, and ankles can keep pace with growing muscular strength. Without proper recovery, the mismatch between muscle strength and connective tissue resilience can increase the risk of injury, halting progress altogether. Over the long term, the cumulative effects of consistent sleep and recovery shape the trajectory of leg development. While training creates the stimulus, it is recovery that translates stimulus into adaptation. Athletes and lifters who treat recovery as an integral part of training often surpass those who focus solely on adding more volume or intensity. By sleeping deeply and giving the body the time it needs to repair, replenish, and reset, the signals created during training are amplified, leading to greater hypertrophy, improved performance, and sustainable progress. Nutrition and hormones regulate long-term leg development, and this connection underscores why building bigger and stronger legs is not simply about what happens in the gym. Training provides the stimulus, but food and hormonal balance provide the raw materials and internal environment that allow the muscles to adapt, repair, and grow. Without proper nutrition, even the most intense squat or deadlift sessions will fail to produce the desired results because the body cannot synthesize new muscle tissue without the necessary substrates. Protein is the most obvious requirement, as it supplies amino acids that serve as the building blocks of muscle fibers. Consuming adequate protein throughout the day ensures a steady supply of these materials, which the body uses to repair the microtears created during training. For the large muscles of the legs, which undergo significant breakdown during heavy workouts, protein intake must be sufficient to meet the higher repair demands. Carbohydrates are equally important, though they are often overlooked. Leg training depletes muscle glycogen stores at a rapid rate, especially during high-volume sessions involving squats, lunges, and leg presses. Carbohydrates restore glycogen, providing the energy needed for both recovery and future workouts. When glycogen levels are low, the body not only struggles to perform at high intensity, but also signals stress pathways that can interfere with muscle repair. Ensuring carbohydrate intake around training sessions supports energy levels, enhances recovery, and reduces muscle protein breakdown. Fats, particularly essential fatty acids, also play a crucial role by supporting hormone production, including testosterone, which is central to hypertrophy and strength development. A balanced approach to macronutrient, adequate protein, sufficient carbohydrates, and healthy fats creates the nutritional foundation for leg growth. Micronutrients and hydration add another layer of importance. Minerals like magnesium, potassium, and calcium regulate muscle contractions and recovery, while vitamins such as D and B-complex aid in energy metabolism and hormonal regulation. For leg muscles to perform optimally and recover fully, these micronutrients must be present in adequate amounts. Hydration also directly influences performance and recovery, as water is essential for nutrient transport, joint lubrication, and cellular function. Even mild dehydration can impair strength and endurance, limiting the effectiveness of leg training. Hormones act as the body's internal regulators, orchestrating the adaptation process triggered by training and fueled by nutrition. Testosterone enhances protein synthesis and promotes muscle growth, making it one of the most influential hormones for leg development. Growth hormone, secreted primarily during sleep, works synergistically with testosterone to stimulate tissue repair and hypertrophy. Insulin, another key hormone, facilitates the transport of nutrients such as glucose and amino acids into muscle cells, fueling recovery and growth. Cortisol, on the other hand, is a catabolic hormone that breaks down muscle tissue when chronically elevated. Nutrition and lifestyle choices directly impact these hormones, influencing whether the internal environment supports growth or breakdown. The interaction between nutrition and hormones becomes particularly important for long-term development because consistency over months and years determines the trajectory of progress. A single training session may stimulate growth signals, but if protein intake is chronically low or sleep and recovery are compromised, those signals are never fully realized. Similarly, if stress and poor nutrition keep cortisol levels high, leg development will stall despite hard training. On the other hand, consistently supporting the body with adequate nutrition, balanced macronutrients, and stress management keeps anabolic hormones elevated and catabolic influences in check, allowing steady and sustainable progress. It is also worth noting that nutrition influences body composition, which affects leg performance and aesthetics. Carrying excess fat can limit mobility and reduce power-to-weight ratio, while inadequate caloric intake can starve the body of the resources it needs to build muscle. The balance between sufficient calories to grow and controlled intake to maintain lean tissue is a key part of long-term strategy. This balance, in turn, regulates hormonal health, as extreme deficits or surpluses disrupt hormone production and impair the efficiency of muscle adaptation. Ultimately, the synergy between nutrition and hormones ensures that the training stimulus in the gym is translated into real, lasting leg growth. Every rep and every set creates the demand, but it is food and hormones that decide whether the body responds positively to that demand. Consistency in fueling the body properly and maintaining a supportive hormonal environment transforms effort in the gym into bigger, stronger, and more resilient legs over time.